largest area of unbroken wilderness in North America is located in the boundary region of Canada's Northwest Territories and Nunavut. At the heart of this zone is the 56,000 square kilometer Thelon Wildlife Sanctuary, which has successfully protected game animals there from hunting for almost a century. Escalating climate change and increased mining activity have now emerged as the chief threats to the existence of caribou, muskox, and other large mammals that form the backbone of life in this vast landscape. In the summer of 2009, Taku Hokoyama and myself, Frank Wolf, set off from the city of Yellowknife on a 2,000-kilometer canoe journey through these backlands in order to reach the town of Rankin Inlet on the Hudson Bay coast.
This is my son Ashitaka. He's 7 weeks old. This summer I have a canoe trip planned. We're leaving my new family for about 50 days or so. I have pretty mixed feelings. My wife is depends on me a lot to help around the house, and being away for 50 days is a big change in a new baby's life. I'm really concerned about his future. A lot of environmental catastrophes await. It's going to happen during his lifetime. Connecting this to a canoe trip is a bit of a stretch, but this is my way of sort of helping the world be at least a little bit better in the future. Everybody that I've ever told that I was going to go on this trip with my son only at 7 weeks, and they said I was going to get divorced, or they looked flabbergasted, and pretty much the only person who hasn't been flabbergasted is my wife. She's the only one who really understands so far why I'm going on this trip. Yeah, and that's good enough. I don't need anybody else to understand as much.
I understand, Taku.
Yeah, I knew you. Well, you asked me to come. You're quite pushy.
We're in the Legislative Assembly of the Northwest Territories here in Yellowknife. Woo! Anything specific that brought you to the side that you thought would be more effective for you to be in the legislature?
I think my concern about climate change was the driving factor for me. I see big things happening and big impacts, and at the same time big opportunities for doing a much better job and addressing those concerns. In my research in the Central Arctic and actually Nunavut, I had a research station for 13 years, and I was starting to see tremendous environmental change happening as the climate changed there, or at least the annual weather conditions. Over the 13 years, the spring had advanced by at least a week, and over a week in the fall. And I was seeing changes in the bird populations and so on. So it struck me how rapid things are changing.
All right, so we're here in Yellowknife. We've just gotten our food for the trip. 40 days worth of food until our next stop.
Our government has a big priority for opening up this land and for developing it. There's a lot of, I think, pretty commonplace thinking when it comes to economic development. mega projects to solve problems, to bring money to the territory. And industry's powerful here as it is everywhere, and it does bring benefits. So, I mean, there's conflict everywhere.
Taku, he has just left his 2-month-old child and wife behind.
You have?
To do this 50-day canoe trip.
Wow.
Would you be able to do such a thing? Do you have a child yourself?
I do have a child. He's 2.5.
And putting yourself in Taku's feet, what would you think? What would you think of Taku?
I don't know if I want to make a judgment call on camera. I don't think I could do it.
Yeah.
But I would imagine, from what I know of Taku, which isn't very much, that he'll probably be bringing his kid on canoe trips in the future.
Alright, so it's July the 9th, and it was cold last night. I had to snuggle right up into my bag in the tent. And you can see the whole canoe here is covered in frost. Is it warm?
Yeah.
All of the water in the Northwest Territories comes from outside of the Northwest Territories. Just south of the NWT border, north of Fort McMurray, is the oil sands development. And there we're seeing huge tracts of land being clear-cut, 130 square kilometers of tailings ponds being developed. And oftentimes they're right against the Athabasca River. These tailings ponds pose a huge risk to the water in the Athabasca River, which then flows north into the Slave River and then into Great Slave Lake. Water is the mode of travel for many groups in the north, many people in the north. It's also the way in which, it's also the resource that sustains the land, sustains the wildlife. So the quality of the water, people say, I've heard the term water is life, and water is boss. They all mean the same thing. Without water, what are we, right? It sustains everything we have, and so we must keep our water safe in order to keep our way of life.
We are approaching the town of Lutzel Cay, a Dene First Nation village here at the east end of Slave Lake, Great Slave Lake. And this will be our last stop for about 30 or so days. So we're going to grab a couple things, talk to a couple people, and keep on heading on.
Okay, we are here at the Lutzel Cay band office, and we're going to go in and talk to Chief Steve Nita. What does the land mean to the people?
Everything. Well, Lutzel Cay is a traditional Dene community that is propelled into Western society. What took Western society 500 years has taken us less than 50. We were a hunters and gatherers society 25 years ago. I, for an example, grew up in the bush on the traplands in tents. I never spoke a word of English till I was 10 years old in kindergarten. So that's my society, that's my people.
Yeah, so right now we're just going through a probably, I don't know, a 5 or 10-year-old burn. And it, yeah, it's just birches, no trail, fallen, burned trees. We've been going for quite a while now. It's getting late. Bugs are hopping. And we're just kind of shuttling back and forth, leapfrogging our gear, slowly towards the Snowdrift River, where we hope to camp tonight at some point. We should keep going. Yeah, you got gouged good.
Oh.
I think the mosquitoes love it.
Uh-oh.
All right, so this burn we're lost in, it's miserable for portaging, miserable for the progress of our trip, but it's all part of the natural process. A fire swept through here, took out a big spruce forest and our portage trail, and probably in the last 5 or 10 years, all the birch trees are starting to grow up now. So it's all these birches which make it very hard to see, but what they do is they provide shade. And look down in here, and you have your little spruces starting to come up. They like the shade, and they're going to grow faster than the birch. They're going to go above the birch will disappear, and it'll be a healthy spruce forest again. So that's the way life is. We're still out here, but we're close. Right, Hoko? We're close. Welcome to my world. Approaching 10 o'clock, and we're doing a bushwhack through the burn, and I can see the river, the Snowdrift River, which means no portage for a couple of days, hopefully. Whew. It's about a 4-hour ordeal. Go ahead, Oko. I'm gonna follow you down. This way. Mosquitoes here don't look very good at all. These are all mosquitoes.
Not special effects.
This is not an exaggeration. Okay, so the big muskox we just saw off the river, this is where he was lying down, and you see these big kind of grooves here, and that's where he was pawing at the sand, just kind of dug in. And back here is where the big massive body was. These are just gigantic creatures. Taku, can you smell there? What's it smell like?
It smells like hay, except after it's been eaten and digested, and it came out the other end.
That's why they call it musk.
Musk. Musk. Musk of ox.
Be a muskox. Yeah, be a muskox. Yeah. Do it. Yeah. He's gonna come get you. So this is the view from the underside of our canoe here. We just put up a quick little speedy tarp this morning, canoe tarp, and the bugs are hammering. There's no wind, and they're just giving it today. So they love it under here too. So it's either the rain or the bugs, or both. We just had a really tough day paddling up the Eileen River, lots of dragging up upstream, not marked the map, kilometer after kilometer. So we're going really slow on our way up to the divide.
From dragging the canoe, I've bashed my shin in the same spot multiple times, and the wound stays wet all day and in various types of water, and it's been swollen, red, and very tender to the touch. So I was kind of wanting to eliminate infection.
Came up to the Northwest Territories to get a lot of large mammals, hopefully on film and still pictures as well. But one thing we didn't expect is to get the first ever video of the Canadian snow leopard. So that was a huge bonus, unbelievable.
It was beautiful. They're everywhere.
All right, so we're camped here tonight on the Eileen River on this big spit of sand. And it's one of the few open areas in this big forest area around us. And all around me are hundreds and hundreds of tracks of caribou, muskox, and moose. And probably the main reason they come out here is it's the one area for them to get relief from the bugs. Like the bugs hammer these big mammals all the time in the forest. If there's a breeze coming through here, it would keep the bugs down. They can hang out, loll in the sand, and get a little bit of relief. What happened to your lip?
Oh, just a couple of mosquitoes kissed me. Maybe 2, 3. Had a good time.
You're a dirty boy.
Oh, don't tell my family.
Okay, we are just about to do a big portage. If you see right behind me here, there's this distant ridge line and a very, very faint trail we found just off the creek here. Much fainter than the ones we've been on before. Just one of these ancient trails, and we basically just follow this swamp line to the edge of that ridge and then over the top. So yeah, it should be a grunt of a day.
Oh boy. Oh.
Well, the people, especially in those days, were very nomadic. And I really wanted to get out in the bush. So I left my government job and I went hunting, fishing, and trapping full time for about 15 years with a Dene family. Spend entire seasons out trapping, and even in the summertime we'd spend the whole season out on the lake just hunting moose and making dry meat, fishing, that sort of thing. So it was a great experience. That was very important for me in terms of learning and being accepted in the community. But by living the life in the bush that people knew. When I was out hunting and trapping with people, there was such a strong sense of history. It was like being in Europe, like in the sense that we'd be walking over trails that people had used for thousands of years, and people knew them intimately and everything about them, so it felt really old and connected.
That portage took 8 hours. 8 hours, Hokoyama. Hokoyama, how are you after today's extravaganza?
Pretty rough. I've had this toe issue that's been bugging me for a while. Every morning I wake up and my toes are actually sensitive and they're a little swollen, and today they seem to be exacerbated by the constant being wet all day, being cold all day, and then the distances weren't great, but we did quite a few portages, so there's fewer on the horizon, and I'm looking forward to it.
It is the end of the day, July 21st, 2009, and it's my birthday. 2 years ago to this day, I was on a 75-day trip with Taku Hokoyama, and he forgot my birthday, and it hurt me a lot. So I'm going to confront him now, because he hasn't said anything all day, and see if he forgot my birthday again. And Taku Hokoyama.
Hello.
What day is it today?
What day is it today? Today is 3 weeks of tripping.
Yes?
Oh no! It's your birthday? It's your birthday! It's your happy birthday, man! Wait, just hold on a second. Yeah, I had this thing prepared all along. Oh, you see? A bouquet of Labrador. I had that ready
Thanks.
for you.
I had no idea. I thought you'd forgot again, just like our last trip.
No, that's not possible. I can't forget anymore. You're just waiting for that, weren't you?
That's an area that my people hold dear to their hearts. It's an area where my people began their civilization according to the oral history. It's an area where God began for us.
Hello there. After almost 700 kilometers of grinding to get to this point, this is the very beginning of the Melad River, which flows through the heart of the largest wilderness area in North America. Yip yip! 1, 2, 3, hey! Finger painting with black flies. What do you think? There's a smile. See the eyes? It's kind of a smiley face there. Really look hard. It's kind of abstract. I consider myself the Pollock of black fly art. Yeah, so the lovely thing about black flies, and mosquitoes in combination, but especially black flies, is that when you do your morning movement, you expose your skin only for like 5 seconds. You know, you wait until it builds and builds and builds, and you're ready to go, and boom, you do it. And then they're on you, like about 100 of them, and you pull your pants up, but then there's still probably about a dozen or so crawling inside your pants, because mosquitoes kind of stay on the outside, but black flies crawl under your clothes and just crawl and crawl and crawl. And once they get exposed flesh, they go to town. Really huge clouds above us right now. Massive, massive. Like something from out of Ghostbusters. What the hell is that thing, Coco?
Beginning of the end.
Shit. So we're just here in the on the Melad. Saw this big bull moose, and here he is just behind me. I just saw him eating grasses in the water, and there he goes off into the bush. When you're out there paddling all day, do you ever think about your son Ashitaka and maybe how this trip and the education you're you're giving here can kind of help him in the future.
Yeah, I can't not help think about him. I think about him every day. I think about my wife every day. I miss them both greatly, so much more than I could have ever imagined. But at the same time, a primary motivator for me to go on this trip was to learn firsthand, what's going on with the environment. Or, last time on a similar trip, we also talked to people who had great things to say, and so I was looking very forward to that on this trip, and it's already happened so many times, manyfold already. And as far as I'm concerned, that's greater than any university education that a person could get, of which I have plenty. So it's been incredible, absolutely worth it for sure, for me, my son, and my wife.
Yeah, so we're here on Ibear Lake on the Upper Thelon, and we're actually waiting out a bit of a windstorm. And the Upper Thelon, the Thelon itself, the valley is known for its large mammals, and we were lucky enough again to catch a glimpse of a leopard. Taku just snuck up on him, got a bit of a shot. The leopard picked up on him there, and he was gone. They're really shy, but we managed to get another shot. So amazing shot.
From experience, we've learned that we can't actually try to capture it. It's all been coincidence. You happen to be pointing the camera in a certain area, and then you capture it. It's that elusive.
Just writing a letter here to the North Wind. Yeah. Dear Mr. North Wind, how are you? I'm writing to tell you that my friend Taku and I have been canoeing down the Eileen River for the past 5 days. We've noticed you've been extremely persistent and strong, and we're wondering if you could take a vacation until we were done the river. Love, Frank. That should do it. So apparently the north wind does not respond to letters. We're just coming through an area called the Gap, and it is howling. Ow! Yeah, so we're just paddling along on the Thelon here, and just along this strand of beach, up and down here, an Arctic wolf was rocking back and forth, and he's tucked into the bush here behind me. Probably looking at me. I saw him a couple minutes ago, wondering what I'm doing here, and his tracks are all up and down this beach, kind of running back and forth everywhere this way. Alright, so we are paddling through right now the Thelon Wildlife Sanctuary, and the sanctuary was created in 1927 in order to save muskox because the population was dwindling so badly. And now it's come back up to a point where there's 2,000 to 3,000 muskox in the area, as well as Arctic wolf, moose, Barrenlands grizzly, and caribou, of course. So it's a very rich, diverse, protected area, and there's no hunting allowed here at all by either Indigenous, like First Nations people, or your average Joe like us. I'm standing here in the remains of John Hornby's cabin. John Hornby is one of the figures actually central to having this whole Thelon Wildlife Sanctuary protected. He made a suggestion in the mid-20s to actually have it set aside to protect the wild game here, basically. What he did, though, in 1926 was he tried to come up here and live off the land. So he brought his two friends, Edgar Christian and Harold Adlard, up here with him, and they were counting on surviving off caribou because he'd seen a large caribou migration in the same area the year before. But unfortunately, the caribou never came, and over the course of less than a year, they starved to death. So the three men were buried just down from the cabin here. On my left is Edgar Christian, in the middle is John Hornby, and the far side is Harold Adlard.
Small errors in judgment have very big consequences when you're isolated out here, and slowly starving to death would have been a very tough way to go, especially in the cold of winter. So lessons directly applicable to us even.
I don't know what kind of bugs we got here, but there are millions and millions of them crawling over everything. Must have been some sort of hatch. They are just everywhere. We're almost blind coming down in the canoe.
At times when I'm crouching over and they're all over my pants, like by tens of thousands perhaps, and collectively I can actually smell them. Like I don't think I've ever smelled a bug like that before.
Coffee, anyone? That's good, we're online.
As First Nations, and we have to make a decision. You know, there's the benefit of this project outweigh the benefit of the security that the land provides.
All right, so we're here on the upper Thelon, and we've seen this little helicopter cruising around us all day, kind of landing and then taking off. So most likely it's part of a little survey camp, and the surveys here are mostly for mining. So you can see that mining companies are laying the groundwork to extract uranium, diamonds, and that sort of thing from the land up here.
Trying to find that balance is always going to be a challenge. For example, caribou migration route. You have 3 diamond mines up there. Those companies are right in the caribou migration route. They have a protocol. If there's a caribou in the way, the caribou has the right way. But even with that, we're seeing the impacts of those projects. Caribous are moving further east and west of that migration route. I think they're going around it instead of going through it now. So it's impacting us, and the ability for us to go out and harvest these caribou is becoming more difficult, more expensive, because it's further away from our community.
Yeah, so that was just pure chance, you know. There's no guarantees to ever see the migration up here. It could be weeks off, you never know where they're going to cross, where you're going to come across them. And we just lucked out as we're just exiting the main part of the Eileen River towards Beverly Lake, their calving grounds. So yeah, just yeah, we lucked out. No doubt about it. Very powerful experiencing that many thousands of animals just moving across the land as they have for thousands of years. And the people up here who've lived up here for thousands of years as well, they've depended on them. These guys are the backbone of this landscape up here. Everything feeds off them. Without the caribou, there are no people, there's no bears, there's no wolves, there's nothing. And they're what makes this kind of very barren landscape so diverse and rich with life. Do you think you'll relay this moment to your son at some point?
Yeah, without a doubt. It's going to be an important part of his life education. It's a treasure, an asset to be passed on, for sure.
Caribou, they are finely tuned, as most organisms are, to their environment, which evolved over a long period of time and is relatively stable compared to the change we're seeing today. Mm-hmm. One of the things for caribou is the timing of their calving, which is acutely tied to the flush of green growth, which happens incredibly rapidly in the tundra where there's very little snow. So all it takes is above freezing or even slightly below, and all of a sudden you get this flush of really it's protein and lipids that are stored in the roots of plants. They get flushed into the tip of those plants, and that really enables them to produce nourishing milk and ensure calf survival and so on. Mm-hmm. When you have a 2-week change in that date, so it's no longer synchronized with the birth of the calves, and that's a highly synchronized event, then it has implications for the survival of caribou.
All right, so we are about 5K outside the town of Baker Lake. We've been battling, we actually had a nice tailwind down the Eileen. Then we turned into this. It's like storm force winds. And now the last turn, the last 5K into town, it's just hammering, like 50 knots easy. So we pulled into this little shelter cabin here, and we're gonna hole up here until the wind dies down. So come on in. Hokoyama?
Welcome! Come join us!
If we have to, we can sleep here tonight, but hopefully the wind dies down and we can make it into Baker Lake. And Baker Lake is a hub of the caribou Inuit, and it's basically is the first town on the east side of the Eileen Wildlife Reserve. The lands within the reserve are kind of jointly shared by the Dene people in Little-K, who we've talked to already, and then the caribou Inuit here in Baker Lake.
Usually when we travel through an area, we also see the people who have, live in the area, whether they're recent immigrants or they've been living there for, generations upon generation. And, to know how the land is important to them as well. And especially in Canada, it's a great opportunity because most of the land is, it belongs to the public. We have a say in how it gets used.
Okay, Paul. What was Baker Lake like when you first got here?
It budak pamin mo tamaw nga kayo kapsi kanila pa kamanito.
Kaya na lang, lapto ko lang, nananayaw tao hak na skala ko. Kaya nananayaw tao, ihamak ko na kami. Hulukan ito ni tuktunik amak ko ni tao tuyak sunik. Pilayakat takita magkakawayanak mata.
How important are the caribou to the Inuit here?
To us, it's really, really important. Like if we eat white man food every day, daily.
Yeah.
Most of us, like me and my husband, or my kids, would have heartburn most of the day. But if we have caribou meat, country food, like for lunch and either for lunch or supper, it's alright with our body.
What do you see as a relationship between the caribou and the wolf?
Hibulayak tinday ko na inuhot tintuhaw mo. Tuktuyak pa mo. Amak ko takon na kayo tuktulito nakamo amak ko mo tuktumiw daw matakta wala mata.
So we interviewed the elder Paul Atutuva, and he doesn't speak English. He only speaks Inuktitut, and he writes in Inuktitut. So he signed the little film release waiver I gave him in the Inuktitut symbols. And these symbols were actually taught or created for the people, the Inuit people, by missionaries in order to teach them the Bible. And around town, most people are speaking in this Inuit language. And all the signs are signed in both English and in Inuktitut. Taku, what does DOG stand for?
Dog?
Don't eat the camera.
Not possible to hold him down.
Is that caribou meat, or what kind of meat is that? Yeah.
Caribou. What I usually do is give her the shot up parts of it, wherever it was shot, the shoulders, the ribs. I save that for the dog.
Looks good.
Looks great.
She's enjoying it.
You just don't kill an animal. You kill an animal with the thought of producing clothing for yourself in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
The edge is the most important when you're making clothing out of it. And you have to kill it at a certain time of the year, which is August.
Mm-hmm.
Second week in August. You can't just kill it if you want to make clothing out of it. You have to know when to kill it, so the skin is perfect to make clothing out of it. And then you dry it with the sun, away from the sun. If you dry it with the sun, I'm drying it with the wind. It depends on the season.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of clothing do you make out of these skins?
Coats, a mounted for carrying babies,
Mm-hmm.
pants.
So this is the pants here, right?
The pants. Our pants are cool pants.
They are. They would be hot in the city. The kids would love it. Those?
Hi.
So what were those used for? What did they do?
To keep you from getting snowblind.
Hmm.
They're really functional. We're the only ones that introduce eyeglasses.
So we got some great footage again of a snow leopard, like something that's never been filmed before, and now to have seen it like a handful of times like this is just amazing. And I think it speaks to the environment actually being quite healthy when a predator at the top of the food chain like that is so evident. So day 41, and we're on Chesterfield Inlet. As the crow flies, probably about 150k from Hudson's Bay, but still a couple 100k left in our trip to get to Rankin. But we're definitely on the ocean, 8-foot tide, lots of kelp around everywhere, the smell of the ocean. So it's definitely a major transition. Hello. We have just pulled into this old cabin here to wait for the current to shift here in Chesterfield Inlet, and we found this big midden of shells. So basically it's just a pile of shells kind of accumulated over many years, used by people for food, obviously. There's some old tent rings also in this site, as well as this old cabin that's no longer in use. The cabin looks like it was a hunting and trapping cabin. There's lots of old parts of caribou bones. We found a wolverine jawbone and some old traps. So this place definitely has a history.
Hello.
How was that last crossing for you?
It was, as usual, as many things are on this trip, terrifying.
What, describe the action in there?
The action was a really, really strong tailwind and a strong current. It was going in our favor, but it was still sending us sailing through the crossing. And we got some pretty long surfs, which I was like, I don't know if we're still in control or not.
So we are back in lake country. We've come off of Chesterfield Inlet. Finally got through the big wind water waves of Chesterfield Inlet. And now we're in this this kind of upstream series of little lakes and rivers, no names to them at all. And it's going to basically pull us to the south and then eventually to the east to Rankin Inlet, our final destination. Hokoyama, why aren't they going for my feet? What's wrong with my feet?
Hey, there's absolutely nothing wrong with your feet. Don't listen to the black flies. They're perfect.
I feel a little bit hurt. What's wrong with my feet? Over the Tundra, and I'm dragging the canoe instead of carrying it because the wind always catches like a sail. So just got it rigged up to my PFD and cruising along here. And this will get us the height of land and get us into the Melad River system, which flows down to Rankin Inlet. Cloudberry.
So Barrenlands is definitely an unfair description of this area. During the short summers, the place just explodes with berries, 7, 8 different kinds. There's a good reason why birds make such a long distance, and they normally live in trees, but they're willing to live on the ground and raise their young here. Just incredibly, incredibly rich.
Taku, what has happened to your hand?
I don't know. It's just weathering in the north. Seems to slowly eat the body away.
So we are on the Melad River here. It's pretty much a boneyard between little windy lakes. So we're finding ourselves stuck in these situations where we just have to drag everything right over the rocks. Yeah, so it's slow going. So we're just doing a traditional celebration here on the shores of Hudson's Bay. The pipe we have here is actually carved by an Inuk artist in Baker Lake. The front of it is a muskox out of soapstone, and the shaft is actually caribou bone. And inside we've put some lichen. Often in nomadic times, the Inuit would pick pieces of plants off the ground and just smoke them for relaxation. So basically, with that, we are celebrating the 3 main components of our journey. The Inuk artist who made the pipe represents the people. The muskox and caribou represents all the animals we saw. And the lichen represents the land. So we salute all 3 of them in celebration of our journey. Boom! So Taku, tell us what you're eating there.
This is fresh caribou liver that was actually hunted by our gracious hosts here. It's amazing. Unbelievably good. Who would have thought we'd roll into Rankin Inlet and receive this kind of hospitality? It's good to be alive.
model-esque child of the world.
Yeah, happy
Right
to be
on.
back, but still happy to have gone on the trip. It's life is good when you have to choose between tough things.
Ed Boone, when are you going to let Taku go on the trip again? Very soon? Next week?
That's up to Ashitaka.
Do you realize you're the envy of men around the world?
What? Why? Because of Taku?
Because your generous nature with Taku.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know how generous I'm going to be after this.
Yes. Well, thank you, Ed for this one.
Oh, you're welcome.
Bye.